Deion and I, we were very competitive. He was the flashy, flamboyant, type of defensive back. And yes, I wanted to get up in this skin.
And both of you were fined $7,500. Basically, I guess they're saying that Sanders was the instigator, but both of you guys were at fault, so you both got a small fine.
He was scared to death. He knew he was going to lose, but he talked his way out of it and still looked like prime time. Like he just made me.
For years, countless NFL legends couldn't stomach Deion Sanders. The resentment ran so deep, it almost turned violent. Jerry Rice has now opened up about what truly caused that level of hostility toward primetime. From locker room betrayals to careers ruined in secrecy, the reasons these players can't forgive Sanders are jaw-dropping. I've uncovered everything. Let's unpack the truth. This was the rivalry that haunted Jerry Rice's nights. Imagine it's 1989, and Jerry Rice, already carving his name as the most unstoppable wide receiver in NFL history, is gearing up for another season with the San Francisco 49ers. Across 20 seasons, he racked up 1,549 receptions, 22,895 yards, and 197 touchdowns, earning the crown as the undisputed master of his craft. Then out of nowhere, like a storm slamming the league, came Deion Sanders, the loud, charismatic rookie cornerback from Florida State, who was ready to rewrite the game. Joining the Atlanta Falcons, Sanders arrived as a swagger-filled speedster who could erase top receivers, flashing that world-class pace with a reported 4.27-second 40-yard dash. What infuriated opponents like Rice wasn't just a raw speed. It was the way Sanders completely reinvented what a defensive back could be. The rivalry caught fire instantly, and Rice would later drop a confession that shook football fans everywhere. In a brutally honest 2023 Sports Illustrated feature, he admitted, "There was a time when I hated Deion Sanders." To clarify, it wasn't personal hatred. It was aimed at Deion the rival, the man lining up across from him every Sunday. This wasn't ordinary competition. It was something deeper, something that lived rent-free in Rice's head and changed the way he approached his craft forever.
Deion and I, we were very competitive. He was the flashy, flamboyant, type of defensive back. And yes, I wanted to get up in the skin. Because I think football is a total team sport. Deion came to us. He did some great things on the football field. He was an excellent corner, and he helped us to win the Super Bowl. But everyone made it seem like it was all about Deion. Well, when he went to the Cowboys, I knew it was going to be a big-time rivalry, all over again. And I think so many people connected because they wanted to see us do better. And I was able to win some of those battles.
But what exactly made Sanders so different, so aggravating, so impossible to deal with that he could rattle even someone as composed as Jerry Rice? The answer lies in what Sanders symbolized for the old-school NFL of the early 1990s. He didn't just play cornerback. He revolutionized it with 8 Pro Bowl nods and 53 interceptions, 8 of which he turned into touchdowns. Sanders fused elite athletic ability with an unmatched flair for showmanship. He rocked gold chains on the field, celebrated with outrageous end-zone dances, and walked with swagger that screamed confidence or arrogance, depending on who you asked. For veterans like Rice, raised on values of humility, discipline, and the team-first mindset, Sanders was everything they feared about the changing culture of football. The psychological chess match between the two began immediately. Rice later revealed that Sanders' mere presence haunted him, forcing him to invent complex release moves, doubles, triples, anything to shake loose. But this wasn't just irritation, it was obsession. It was mental warfare, Rice admitted. You want to test yourself against the best, but this was different. The fire between them went far beyond strategy or pride. In a brutally honest confession on Kevin Hart's Cold as Ball's podcast, Jerry Rice finally said it plainly. "I hated that guy, man." We never saw eye to eye. The frustration in Rice's tone was undeniable as he described how Sanders made his work infinitely tougher, demanding non-stop strategizing and preparation that other receivers never had to face. The stats only paint part of the picture. Across 10 head-to-head matchups, excluding their shared season as teammates, Rice totaled 60 receptions, 1,051 yards, and 10 touchdowns, while Sanders collected 4 interceptions. Yet Sanders' influence reached far beyond the numbers. Quarterbacks frequently avoided his zone completely, proof of his lockdown skills that drove competitors like Rice to the edge of their sanity. What made this clash so captivating was how it mirrored the greater cultural shift transforming the NFL in the early 1990s. Rice symbolized the old school, those who earn respect through consistency, discipline, and quiet dedication. Sanders, by contrast, embodied a new generation of athletes unafraid to flaunt their victories, market their image, and defy the long-standing shut-up-and-play mindset that had ruled pro sports for decades. The conflict wasn't merely about style. It was philosophical. Rice had been raised on the belief that football was a team endeavor where personal glory should always yield to group achievement. Sanders, meanwhile, recognized that in an age of growing sports entertainment, charisma and visibility were as vital as performance. This deep divide in their interpretation of professionalism would keep their rivalry alive for years.
We went at it. I mean, folks would stop to see us go at it. Mac was the same way, man. Mac was a dog, man.
Right.
And Mac had a whole different type of game. And Jerry was too. Andre Rison was a dog.
Right.
Yes, I played with some guys that can go to work, and we went to work in practice. But Jerry and I, because of the previous battles, the practice against him, it was very interesting.
Even Deion himself admitted the unique spark of their showdowns, acknowledging that their practices became must-watch moments for teammates and coaches alike. Beneath the competitiveness and clashing ideals lay mutual admiration, hidden but undeniable. However, Rice's confessions about his resentment towards Sanders went far beyond competition. In his Sports Illustrated piece, Rice opened up about the mental strain. "I couldn't sleep the night before knowing he'd be covering me." That statement revealed just how deeply Sanders lived rent-free in his mind. A perfectionist of route precision and timing was losing sleep over a flamboyant corner who seemed to follow a completely different rulebook. The irony wasn't lost on Rice. His animosity towards Sanders ultimately elevated his own game. He later admitted it wasn't simple irritation but drive, a force that pushed them both to their limits. The biblical idea that iron sharpens iron was unfolding on NFL fields every Sunday. What Rice couldn't foresee in those early battles was that destiny would soon unite them, testing not only their competitive fire, but their capacity to coexist while chasing the same championship dream. The groundwork was laid for one of football's most unforgettable plot twists, a twist that would turn their rivalry into a storm threatening to shatter a Super Bowl contender. The year 1994 marked a turning point no one could have predicted. After 5 seasons of tormenting receivers in an Atlanta Falcons uniform, Deion primetime Sanders made a move that sent shockwaves across the league, setting up one of the most volatile teammate pairings in NFL history. Sanders. The move to the San Francisco 49ers wasn't just another free agency transaction. It was a calculated chess strategy crafted to solve the team's most glaring flaw, one that led consecutive NFC championship defeats at the hands of the Dallas Cowboys. Despite boasting Jerry Rice and an explosive offense, the 49ers had consistently been dismantled by the Cowboys' relentless aerial assault. Management recognized they desperately needed elite cornerback support to finally clear that hurdle. But acquiring Sanders meant far more than upgrading talent. It meant forcing Jerry Rice, a man who had openly confessed to despising Sanders, to not only coexist with his biggest rival, but to depend on him for the team's success. The mental dynamic was extraordinary. Imagine being paired with the very person who tormented you professionally for 5 years, the same opponent whose presence once robbed you of sleep while you prepare for battle. Rice, long seen as the emotional core of the 49ers franchise, initially doubted Sanders' compatibility with the team's established culture. Here stood a player who embodied everything Rice believed had gone wrong in modern football: flashy, self-promoting, and seemingly more devoted to his personal brand than to unity or humility. How could someone like that possibly fit into the 49ers' legacy of discipline, preparation, and teamwork? From the very first day, the tension was impossible to ignore. Rice's frustration over the team's previous playoff collapses had been simmering for years, and now he was being asked to put his faith in a man who personified everything he resented about the league's new direction. The irony was brutal. The 49ers were staking their entire championship run on the uneasy alliance of two football philosophies that couldn't be more different.
I never disliked someone. if someone talked about me, is that's the misconception. I never talked on the field. Now, you did. You talked like the best of them.
I was provoked.
You was provoked. You provoked. No, some people you ain't like though. Some people you ain't like, and you did your homework, and you found out everything, you talked about it like it.
Sanders' own admissions exposed the strategic precision behind his psychological warfare. He knew exactly how to crawl inside an opponent's mind to meticulous study and mental manipulation. But this time, instead of turning those tactics against Rice, he had to redirect them toward collective success. The culture clash surfaced instantly during practice. Rice, whose legendary career had been built on obsessive preparation, dawn workouts, and endless film sessions, watched in disbelief as Sanders approached the game with calm, almost effortless swagger. Where Rice saw laziness, Sanders saw mastery, an unshakable confidence in his raw ability. Where Sanders saw rigidity, Rice saw discipline, the very drive that, in his view, separated true champions from pretenders. Yet, despite their philosophical collision, something extraordinary began unfolding on the field. The 49ers, fortified by Sanders' lockdown coverage, witnessed a rapid transformation in their defense. His presence empowered the coaches to unleash more aggressive schemes, confident that one side of the field was effectively sealed off. Meanwhile, Rice continued to dominate offensively, perhaps fueled even more by the challenge of proving his worth alongside the man he once despised. The regular season became living proof that this uneasy alliance could function, at least professionally. The 49ers bulldozed their opponents, with Sanders anchoring the defense and Rice rewriting the NFL record books on offense. But as the playoff approached, long-suppressed tension began to bubble dangerously close to the surface. The stage was set for chaos. Super Bowl 29, the defining moment of everything the 49ers had fought for. They had finally conquered the Cowboys in the NFC Championship, thanks largely to Sanders' ability to shut down Dallas's air assault. Now, on the brink of glory, the delicate truce between Rice and Sanders faced its ultimate test. The spark that would soon enter team legend began when Sanders decided to violate team curfew just days before the Super Bowl. In an organization built on discipline and total focus, his choice to go out partying struck Rice as the ultimate betrayal of everything he believed championship preparation stood for. Championship preparation. For Rice, who had always preached focus and sacrifice as the foundations of greatness, Sanders' behavior felt like the ultimate insult. Not just him, but to the entire team and the moment itself. What happened next has since been remembered as one of the most volatile confrontations in NFL locker room history. Rice, typically composed and measured, finally snapped. Years of buried tension, competitive resentment, and the overwhelming pressure of the biggest game of their lives collided in a single explosive moment.
That's what he said to me after. He said, man, I had nothing to lose.
Let's bring out.
Yeah, I don't want to experience that again.
Let's bring out Darcy Johnson here. Wherever.
Witnesses later described the confrontation as nothing short of nuclear. Rice and Sanders hurled vicious words back and forth, and what started as a verbal clash nearly erupted into a physical fight. The weight of their long-standing rivalry, the suffocating Super Bowl pressure, and their polar opposite views of professionalism created a volatile cocktail that almost tore the team apart. Rice's message to Sanders was unmistakable. When we step onto that field, we work. It's the Super Bowl. This wasn't about a curfew or a party. It was about respect, discipline, and what it truly meant to wear the mantle of champion. Rice was making it clear that Sanders' carefree attitude toward the biggest moment of their careers was not just unacceptable. It was dangerous to everything they had built. That confrontation could have easily doomed the 49ers' championship hopes. Team chemistry is delicate even under ideal conditions, and having two of the franchise's most crucial players at odds just days before the Super Bowl was a nightmare scenario. Players and coaches collectively held their breath, fearing that the uneasy alliance between Rice and Sanders was about to implode when it mattered most. But then something extraordinary happened. Instead of dividing the locker room, the argument seemed to ignite a renewed sense of purpose. Sanders, perhaps realizing the truth behind Rice's outburst, rededicated himself to the team's preparation. Rice, after finally confronting his frustrations head-on, managed to transform his anger into motivation.
This will be great. Deion's going to raise Brandon Marshall.
The Super Bowl 29 that followed became a living testament. to what can happen when personal rivalries give way to shared ambition. The 49ers annihilated the San Diego Chargers 49-26, with both Rice and Sanders delivering performances that defined their legacies. Rice battling through a separated shoulder sustained in the NFC Championship, not by Sanders, as gossip had suggested. Put on an MVP-worthy show, 10 receptions, 149 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Sanders, on the other hand, anchored the defense with the dominance and poise the team had long lacked, silencing the Chargers' passing attack and validating the organization's gamble on him. That championship ring they earned together represented far more than athletic glory. It stood as proof that even two men divided by ego, history, and philosophy could find common ground when the pursuit of greatness demanded it. Most unlikely allies.
Awesome move, but at the same time, I'm telling you, man, you 21 years old, you ain't been in the South. You like, I ain't going. You know, I'm not going down there. And you know, years later, you become best of friends with Akon, best of friends with Big Meech, best of friends with, you know, all these just stars and entertainers, Deion Sanders, and all these people. So you don't.
But as the confetti drifted down and the celebrations erupted, both Rice and Sanders knew their story was far from finished. Sanders' tenure in San Francisco would be short-lived, and soon he would make yet another headline-grabbing move, one that would reignite their rivalry in even more explosive fashion. The lessons from their Super Bowl confrontation would echo through their futures, shaping how both men approach competition, teamwork, and eventually something resembling friendship. Why NFL legends really hated primetime. The connection between Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders didn't end with their 1994 Super Bowl victory. If anything, it was merely the calm before another storm. When Sanders chose to join the Dallas Cowboys after only one season with the 49ers, their rivalry was reborn, louder, sharper, and more personal than ever. To Rice, that decision wasn't just a career move. It was betrayal, a confirmation of everything he'd always suspected about Sanders' motives. How could someone who just lifted a Super Bowl trophy alongside his team, after being part of something so special, turn around and sign with their most despised rival, all for a bigger paycheck? For Rice, who built his identity on loyalty, dedication, and team-first ethics, Sanders' defection validated every doubt he'd ever voiced about the man's priorities. But the Sanders-Cowboys union symbolized something even greater, and to many veterans, far more unsettling. It wasn't simply one player changing teams.
Yeah, and both of you were fined $7,500. Basically, I guess they're saying that Sanders was the instigator, but both you guys were at fault, so you both got a small fine.
I mean, you know, in the movie it's gonna be real good, you know. But football is a physical game.
Sanders would.
It marked a cultural evolution in the very definition of a professional athlete. Sanders wasn't just an athlete. He was a brand, a showman marking himself as part of a new entertainment empire, daring to challenge the long-standing belief that athletes should stay quiet, humble, and obedient. Interview 1529, 1533. The wider NFL community's animosity towards Sanders went well beyond his on-field brilliance. Sure, his 8 Pro Bowl selections and 53 interceptions place him among the all-time greats, but his flamboyant style and rule-bending approach infuriated traditionalists. His hesitation to engage in run tackles, his elaborate touchdown dances, and his simultaneous pursuit of stardom in both the NFL and MLB were viewed as evidence of a deeper issue, a disregard for football's code of sacrifice and respect. Andre Reeson, another elite wide receiver with his own tangled history with Sanders, offered a glimpse into the cultural divide Sanders created everywhere he went. Interview 1607, 1629. Reeson's perspective highlighted how Sanders' fame and crossover connections made him unlike any typical football player. While most pros spent their entire careers devoted solely to the gridiron, Sanders was busy forging relationships in music, fashion, and entertainment, building a personal empire that would outlive his playing days. It was visionary and lucrative, but to many of his contemporaries, it felt like abandonment, a betrayal of the grind. That resentment came to a head during a 1994 matchup when Reeson and Sanders, once teammates turned sworn rivals, exploded into a sideline brawl that spiraled into punches and pandemonium. a physical manifestation of everything the old guard hated about primetime and everything the new era was becoming. Interview 1702-1722. Sanders would later describe the incident as stupid and ignorant, but by then, the emotional damage had already been done. The altercation came to symbolize the deeper cultural divide between Sanders' revolutionary mindset and the expectations of the old-school football establishment. What made the animosity towards Sanders so layered was that much of it stemmed less from legitimate grievances and more from jealousy and misunderstanding. Sanders was simply operating years ahead of his time, recognizing earlier than most how to leverage his value as both an athlete and a performer. What critics labeled arrogance was, in reality, a masterclass in self-promotion and brand development, concepts that wouldn't become standard practice in professional sports for another decade. The backlash against Sanders' perceived selfishness on the field was equally short-sighted. Detractors cited his reluctance to tackle on running plays, his avoidance of contact, and his focus on interceptions rather than textbook coverage as proof of his flaws. Yet, those criticisms ignored the genius of his strategic influence. His mere presence forced quarterbacks to abandon entire halves of the field, fundamentally altering offensive game plans. Rice himself would eventually come to understand this nuance, though it took years and reflection for his opinion to shift. In his later interviews, Rice admitted that his hatred for Sanders was never truly personal. It was fuel, a competitive fire that pushed both men to reach their absolute peaks. That evolution in Rice's thinking mirrored a larger transformation across the NFL, as legends began to reassess what primetime had really meant to the sport. What once looked like showboating and rebellion is now celebrated as innovation, a breaking of the mold that redefined what athletes could be. Sanders wasn't destroying football's heritage. He was expanding it, proving that individuality, charisma, and excellence could coexist within the game's highest standards. Interview 1858-1904. Even Brandon Marshall's reflections on aging athletes highlight how much of the old guard's resistance to change was rooted not in principle but in fear being left behind. The old heads Marshall spoke about represented an era of players uneasy with a shifting sports world where identity and marketability had become just as vital as raw talent. That same friction still echoes today. Modern critics of the Sanders family, particularly those targeting his sons Shadur and Shiloh, repeat the same accusations once thrown at Deion himself: arrogance, entitlement, and favoritism. The culture clash between traditional football purists and the Sanders philosophy clearly hasn't disappeared. Yet, Rice's eventual support of Sanders' coaching journey at Jackson State and later Colorado marked a full-circle moment. Rice has publicly praised Sanders' impact on HBCUs, recognizing their shared connection to historically black institutions and acknowledging the transformative mentorship he's offered to young athletes. Today's college football world, shaped by nil deals, transfer portals, and player-driven branding, stands as proof that Sanders' vision wasn't rebellion. It was prophecy, the game itself. Sanders' understanding that athletes are not just competitors but entertainers, that a strong personal brand can elevate both the individual and the team, has become the new standard rather than the exception. Interview 2022-2051. Sanders' passionate defense of his players and his unwavering commitment to his program show that his legacy was never merely about self-promotion. His genuine investment in the success of his athletes, both on and off the field, revealed a depth of purpose that many of his early critics failed to recognize. Ultimately, the saga of Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders evolved into something much larger than a personal rivalry. It became a reflection of the evolution of professional sports itself, the push and pull between tradition and innovation, humility and expression, and the enduring possibility of finding respect and understanding between even the most unlikely adversaries.
Father Time is undefeated. And that's what's wrong with our old heads, man. That's what we call those guys.
Even Brandon Marshall.
Their journey, from outright animosity to mutual respect and, eventually, something close to friendship, mirrors the wider acceptance of Sanders' philosophy across the football world. Rice's final reflections perhaps capture it best. Their rivalry was never truly about hatred, but about two competing definitions of greatness battling for validation. Both philosophies held value. Both created champions, and both shaped the legacy of the NFL in lasting ways. The disdain that Rice and many other legends once felt towards Sanders was real, Over time it became clear that it wasn't about character. It was about fear of evolution. As the game matured and adopted many of the principles Sanders had championed decades earlier, that hostility transformed into respect, and eventually admiration for a man who wasn't rebelling against football's culture, but redefining it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click one of the boxes now appearing on your screen to explore more stories just like this one.